Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Roundtable with Vienna Whyte, episode 73. I'm one of your hosts, Millie Rouge, from the band Vienna Whyte from Edmonton in Canada. This Roundtable is a YEG music production. I'd like to introduce you to the other host of the show, Marissa Kay, who makes up the other half of our band, Vienna Whyte. Marissa, could you actually start off today by introducing our guests that we have on the call today?
Yes, I can. So we have Kit Rice, Minerva
Hello.
Daisy, Tingy,
Hi.
Olivia
Ciao.
Browse, and Freddie Elmberg.
Awesome. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're so excited to have you on today. We are actually doing a segment today about British musicians. So these musicians make up different parts of Britain, and we're so excited to kind of get a perspective that's different from ours. So we're from Canada, of course, so we obviously
Like
have...
Britain's granddaughter.
Yeah, we have different experiences with music and kind of our music scene. So we're really curious to know more about your guys' music scene. So before we start into the questions, I want to just, in about 2 to 3 minutes or less, hear about your guys' musical journey, how you started, where you are today, or anything else you want to mention. So why don't we start it off with Kit? Can you tell us a little bit about your musical journey?
Hi, I'm Kit Rice. I'm from Southeast London. I started out my training as a classical violin player, and that kind of took me on my first tour. I did a little tour with Ledra Chapman, and we supported Ed Sheeran and Tom Jones, which was quite cool. That was like my start off. And then from there, I just wanted to be in the spotlight and not to the side, but behind a monitor. So I started releasing my own music in 2013. Yeah, and it's doing quite well. I've just had my last single had nearly 200,000 views on Spotify. So I'm like nearly there. And that music is drum and bass and swing put together. And that's the tune with the most hits.
That's really cool.
But yeah, we're going to be releasing another single in about a month.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, really exciting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing. Minerva, can you tell us a bit about your musical journey?
Yeah, so I'm Minerva Daisy, and I'm an alt pop kind of singer-songwriter. When I was about 6, I started playing piano because there was one in a house that we used to live in Wales, and I just fell in love with it. And I've been singing since I don't even know, apparently since I was like 3. I've never been properly trained, but I got a lot of family who are musicians, like my dad's in a band, so it kind of came from there. I've just started studying at Manchester, which is a music university. And yeah, I've just released my debut single back in March onto Spotify.
That's awesome. Great to hear. Congrats on your single
yeah.
release. Now, Olivia, can you tell us a little bit more about your musical journey?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Essex, but I moved to Manchester to go to Manchester as well. And yeah, I just started writing songs since I was about 15 when I was in a band, and then decided that I loved it, so continued to write songs, and that's where I am now, really.
Fantastic. And Tingy, can you tell us more about yourself? And your
Hello,
musical
I'm
journey?
Jack Tingy. I'm a music producer and mix engineer. Originally from Blackpool, work out of Manchester, UK, and other areas. And basically, I sort of fell into music accidentally in a way. I think I was 15 at the time. I literally just stumbled across a YouTube video on, hip hop music production. And I was like, what's this? And I just got in a rabbit hole of just consuming that kind of content. And then it's just led to me sort of doing my own thing and just figuring my way out in the music industry.
Very cool. I love that you just stumbled into it, because that's actually I feel like not as common for people to just stumble into it. Usually they have some sort of thing, like Minerva said, where like a family member or someone kind of brings them into it. So that's really interesting.
That's it.
Now, Freddie, can you tell us about how you got into the music world?
Hi. Yeah, I'm Freddie. I'm 20. I'm from Southwest London. I got into it because my mom was a concert pianist. She studied at the Royal College in London, and I'm now at the Royal Northern College of Music, the Music Conservatoire in Manchester, doing pop music, singing and piano. But yeah, I was classically trained on the violin and piano, and played at places like the Royal Festival Hall in London and stuff like that. And then got more into pop when I was like 15. So just basically been writing. I've done like bits and bobs really as much as I can. Like I've done stuff for film scores, choral music, podcast music for that. And I've recently got a manager now out in LA. So and with Zoom calls, it's all kind of done that way because obviously I can't travel there yet. And yeah, just working on a music video with the company and just writing with loads of producers and songwriters at the moment. Yeah.
Nice. That's incredible.
Nice.
That must be so hard working with a manager that's like not from your city. That must be really difficult.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. He's desperate to keep the UK scene though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's completely fair.
Well, thank you everyone so much for sharing about your musical journeys. It's great for us as the hosts and for our audience to learn more about you guys before we kind of get into some topic questions. So we're going to jump into our topic of the day, which is British music. So you have the first question, Marissa.
Yeah.
Can you kind of start that off?
Yeah, so we discussed this before on different roundtables about the benefits of creating fan bases outside of the city that you're currently located. Do you find yourself promoting locally more or internationally?
I definitely think locally. Don't know. I feel like it's easier to like promote, like market your music to people that live locally, and there's more people that get interested. I think that way. Although, obviously, because I think back in the day, like in like the 90s and stuff, it was all like about bands breaking America and things like that. But it's not really like that now, I don't think. So yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, well, and it's funny too, because like for us in Edmonton, that's kind of the.
What were you gonna say?
The
You're gonna say
thing, too.
something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like I started out sort of because obviously my first like passion that I got into music was like hip hop and like that sort of new era sort of trap music. So when I first started out, I was like, oh, is anybody even doing this in the UK? So I was basing all my Instagram posts, like all my hashtags, all my music towards like an American audience and like people from Atlanta, New York, and LA and places like that. But like in recent years, I have been branching out into cities like Manchester, Birmingham, London, things like that, because there is a huge scene obviously over here. So yeah, it's like a 50-50 split with me now, with like US and UK.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, I promote my music. I mean, when I started out, like as you said, there wasn't much of a UK scene for R&B, hip hop. I was releasing music in like 2010, 11, and it was so much more about America. Like, I agree. But it's been pretty cool over the last while. Like, the last 5 years, there's definitely an R&B UK like scene that's happened that's exploded. So it's really exciting. So I kind of have a similar story. I was promoting a lot in America, and then now you can promote in the UK, and there's actually fans there that like R&B and hip hop and that kind of stuff. So that's
I didn't know that
cool.
about that there was an R&B scene kind of booming there. I'm gonna have to check out some of the music there then,
Yeah.
because I'm really curious, and I love R&B, so I kind of want to hear
I
more.
mean, I ended up like transferring into like a lot of different genres, like
Yeah.
jazz and drum and bass, and like I think I got most of my views on my latest track from New Zealand, which is obviously somewhere I've never been before, but there's a massive drum and bass scene there.
Yeah.
So we were actually planning to go out there and do some gigs there, but then COVID happened.
Of course.
So suck it, COVID.
Yes.
Well, and
So
it's
you guys-
it's interesting when you can promote yourself in countries that you normally wouldn't even think about. Like I know that there's some days you're like looking at your Instagram and Facebook analytics and you're like, someone from like Cape Town, South Africa is listening to our like. It's so strange with the internet now, but it's really cool because
Who's
that way you
listening
get to
it in
find those new.
Japan? Like what?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too with you, Kit, because you kind of stayed pretty close to home with how you promote your music as well, like with, as you mentioned before, touring with like people like Ed Sheeran and Tom Jones. So do you find that collaborating locally has benefited you internationally?
I mean, like, I kind of did all of that as a session musician, and it's like a different kind of world. You're not really involved in whether it's promoted or like what the branding is or anything like that. It's just that you get text the postcode, get in the van with the band and just turn up to whatever festival it is or whatever tour we're doing. I generally don't have to work that hard in that environment. So it was definitely a shock coming out of that and going into promoting my own music. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot more difficult. There's a lot more to it than you think. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes to just getting a single out there with an artwork and promoting it and making sure that it gets to the right people.
Absolutely.
There's definitely an art to it, which I'm sure you guys
Yeah,
know.
even people
There's an
not
art and a
from
money
British
to it.
British places will know that too.
It's a struggle.
Yeah. So my question for all of you is, do you feel that British music has played an important role in shaping the music scene globally? What are some examples you can think of that kind of back this?
I mean, Beyonce in her lyrics, like in her fourth album, it's like London, speed it up, Houston, rock it. Like our music is all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, when you take, you know, grime nowadays is being played in shows in America, which just would not have happened in the early 2000s. So yeah. I mean,
another example is Drake at the moment. I mean, if you look, I know Toronto and London have like a good affinity anyway with like slang and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Drake's heavily like getting involved in the UK music scene, the hip hop and the grime and like the drill space. I mean, he was like, pretty sure he was the main reason why. Do you know the Netflix series Top Boy? Why that actually got restarted, and obviously that's a British show. So it shows that there is a global interest in the UK music scene and the UK media scene.
Yeah.
Where
oh yeah, definitely 100%. I mean, take the producers on the Beyonce Lion King album. They were all Afrobeats producers from the UK.
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, we in the driving seat.
Yeah. And actually, we also just got some comments here on Reddit. Andy P300 said, "Just listen to Minerva's song. It's good." They like your song, Minerva.
Thank you.
And the Riskiest Biscuit said, "The Beatles!" Exclamation points. We knew that was going to come up at some point today.
Also those guys, them guys as well.
Can't forget about those guys. That's amazing.
I think a lot of like older bands as well really influence the British music scene now. With like TikTok and everything, people have kind of discovered older styles, like actual fashion styles, and with it started listening to David Bowie again and Queen and all sorts, which are amazing artists. But I think with social media now, it's so much easier to rediscover past British music, and people think it's all like grime, which is awesome, but it's not. There's so many different sides to British music that it's just
like rock and roll. Rock started the whole thing. Like it's the basis for the music industry in this country.
And Britpop as well. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Many a band I can think of, Keen to
Yeah.
McFly. I was just coming to my head, but probably no one really likes McFly.
Tell you what, like, an observation I've made as well, though, is because, like, I'd say I'm probably 75% of what I do is in that hip hop space, and there still is like a desire from most artists that I work with to reach America. Like, it still is like an end goal in a sense for some people, where it's like, oh yeah, well, I could be doing well in the UK, but will it break America? Will it reach the US charts, X, Y, Z? So that's still in the back of the mind, because I think like with cultural influence, the UK can't really like compete with America because of the size of it, the size of their like media industry. But but like when it comes to influence, obviously UK has always had a great influence on American music and vice versa. But that's what I've seen. There is like a true drive to sort of break America. And, will there be a British rapper that really hits the charts in the US?
That would be amazing. I would love that. Mostly just because I feel like we don't hear about it as much. It's very like, I feel like the rap is like a very much American dominated
100%.
genre, you know? So moving right along, Olivia, I wanted to wish you a happy belated birthday, by the way. August 19th, happy belated. And huge congratulations on your release of Red Stripe. We've seen a lot of people release music during quarantine, and we've seen a lot of really great music coming out of it. how has your experience, and we're going to open this up to everybody, but how has your experience during quarantine differ from the previous times you've released music? Is there anything that you learned this time around versus before?
I feel like this time around, I've tried not to try not to overthink stuff. Basically, like it seems like the making music while I've been basically stuck at home with nothing else to do, it's like the last thing that I want to do, really, for some reason, when Corona happened. But then, like, I don't know, that it got to a point where you just kind of think, well, I might not have any inspiration, I'm stuck inside, but I'm still going to make some bops out of it. So, so I started, like, fiddling about, really, and then I kind of just made songs that were, like, jokey songs, but then I thought, well, I'll put it out anyway. And I think it's kind of taught me a little bit, like, in the future, you know, don't take it too seriously. It's not that deep. Music's meant to be fun, people to entertain people. So yeah, that's what I feel like.
For sure. Like I had that same story with not being really inspired in like the first couple of months, where there's just nothing really to talk about. You're inside all the time, and all of my lyrics were like exactly what's happening. Like, and then as time goes on, as you were saying, music is fun. Music is what gets me up in the morning. Like I have to keep writing, or I'm just gonna go insane.
Oh man,
Definitely.
feel that on a spiritual level for sure. Freddie, I'm curious to know what you think about this, because you said you were working with producers and you have like that manager out in LA. So how has releasing and writing music been for you this entire time?
Well, I've been writing loads, not releasing much, because we're planning like some strategy with a music video and all the ad teams and PR teams that go behind that. So I've been writing loads, but really focusing on just making one single really, really good and having like marketing it really well and putting loads of like things behind it. So I've kind of used it as kind of more planning. And I've been just writing songs and with producers and writers and just trying to find that sweet spot, you know, with one song to hopefully get out there. But lockdown's been really good because my music's sort of taken off in a way with this LA scene and the labels out there, which is really cool. So it's actually kind of good that uni's are sort of shut, because now I have more time to do that. And I can just do more writing and producing. So, yeah, it's been really good, really productive. But there are some days where I'm like, fucking hell, I don't want to write another song. It just becomes a bit of a chore. You don't want to lose passion for it. So I think it's good to take a break sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the beginning of quarantine, especially, everyone was putting so much pressure on themselves, I think, as artists to really, they're like, oh, this is the perfect time to write. But
if you're not being productive, you should be ashamed. Kind of thing.
But I think musicians, we are humans. We needed time to process everything that was going on, of course. And I think now that we're kind of slowly starting to figure out how to adjust and adapt to this, we're all, like, I know for us at least, we're feeling more like inclined to write, and we're feeling a little bit more positive about our writing, and it's not so draining to try and, like you kind of said, Freddie, like sometimes you just didn't want to write a song, and we totally felt that. I know I did. But.
And the other thing too is giving yourself time to write, which is a great point to make, because I feel like we're all of us are very worried about getting our music out right away. So I think it's nice to take your time and build the excitement too, because I feel like if you just write something and put it out right away, people don't have time to even think about it. Which I think sometimes a lot of artists tend to lose that idea of like, oh, we need to actually promote this and put this out and show people, like, to get excited about it instead of just, you know, putting a song out for the sake of putting a song out. So that's a really good point. I dig that.
I mean, the quarantine period has been quite good for like writing over Zoom, because I think there's a lot of people who didn't really want to write over Zoom. But as time went on and the studios weren't opening, and it's just like, well, we're going to get to the end of this year and have no songs and nothing to kind of show for it for that amount of time. So I started putting together Zoom sessions, and I actually ran a songwriting camp last week with 22 writers and 7 producers on it, all on Zoom, all in breakout rooms. There's like some amazing stuff that you can do on Zoom now, like with the preferences, like what me and Tingy are doing with like plugging in actual microphones into Zoom.
Hello.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different apps that you can get. My favorite one is Listen To. It's a plugin that you can put into your Logic session, and it streams the audio live. So, like, say it was we were all writing the song, but Tingy was going to be producing the song. He could put that into his stereo out, send us the link, and we would be able to hear the full track in full audio with the bass, with the everything.
Hold on.
And
What
then
was
you
this
would
app
all-
called? Let me write it down right now.
It's called it's called Listen To.
Okay.
One word.
Listen to.
Listen.
Huh.
That is so
and say
interesting.
you like record your vocals on Logic on your laptop, bounce it off, send it through Zoom on the chat, and then the producer puts it into his session, and you hear it back instantly through the headphones.
Wow.
And that's what's
That's
really
incredible.
like set a lot of people free, because like writing over FaceTime, it's not as like it doesn't work in the same way as Zoom does.
Yeah, no.
So that's kind of unlocked a lot of
Can't
people's
share a
brains,
screen.
and now we've been writing more than ever. It's turned out to be even more like it works better because
Beneficial.
I can look into your eyes and write the song with you. The producer's right there.
Yeah.
So I'd say go for it if you're looking
Very
to,
cool.
to do some writing on Zoom, because it's great fun, and you can do lots of sessions all at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's a great
quite
point, that we've kind of taken something like a crappy situation but made something better from it. And it's, again, like scheduling wise, it is hard to schedule like songwritings and meeting with your producers, for example, like Freddie said. So Zoom has kind of been a blessing in disguise, and I think we all need to give a little
Even
shout
for
out to Zoom,
international,
because we wouldn't be doing this
I
thing without
had
it.
people in Australia, people in South Africa,
Yeah.
writers in Germany and Spain, and then also in Ireland and Scotland, and you can all come together as long as you
Yeah.
tell everyone what time it is in their own
Send the
time
proper
zone.
link.
And it's all
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah, well, that's actually a great point, that I kind of wanted to move on to our next question here. So when musicians like us, for example, when we think of music capitals of the world, of course, London is one of the top cities we think of. Do you find it easier to pursue your music dreams in a city like London, or on a less popular city such as Manchester? So for instance, like us, we live in Edmonton, which is still a popular city, but Toronto and Vancouver, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, are both known for the music, and everybody leaves Edmonton to pursue music there, if that makes sense. So the question is, do more people in smaller cities usually go to London for that success, do you guys find?
Yeah and no. I mean, there's a good balanced argument behind it. I was actually having this conversation with one of my artists that I was with recently, and like Manchester is a good city for music. Like the community is a lot. The way I see it is a lot more close knit than like London. London's a little bit more fragmented. There's other groups and things like that. But the Manchester music scene, especially in the hip hop space, everybody sort of knows everybody, and everybody's sort of friendly with everybody. There's not like it's not as cutthroat as London in a sense. Do you know what I mean? There's a more communal feel. And if you're a growing artist in Manchester and you can create a buzz from Manchester, like some artists like H have done, if you've heard of H, who's currently in the UK charts and things like that now. Because he got such like a communal buzz off his local city, it could actually propel him further. Then instead of him instantly going to London and trying to find his feet in London, he had this huge backing of the Manchester scene, the Manchester community behind him, which propelled him into London at a higher level.
Who's from a smaller town?
I am.
Yeah, I'm actually in Blackpool at the moment, but I always go to Manchester for music-based work.
I came from Buxton, Buxton Water. That's where I'm from. And when I first started playing there, I did a lot of busking, and there was like it's kind of like a retirement town. So there was a lot of older people there, and because at the time I was listening to a lot of soul music and older music, the covers that I did really fit in. And from there, I did gigs in the small pubs where people from Manchester would come down for a day out, see me, and then be like, "Hey, do you want to come play here?"
Wow.
So I think it's really good to get a small, really like tight-knit fan base first, even if it's like 100 people who will constantly listen to your music and follow you, and then you go to Manchester and they'll share all your music, and then you can go to London and you just keep growing. I think it's difficult to start in a bigger city.
Yeah, you get more
Yeah,
momentum
really
when you have a little community behind you. There's more momentum.
Yeah.
You were talking about that a little bit, Olivia.
Yeah. Well, because because I'd come from originally Essex. It's like when, which is like just outside of London. I'm sure you guys will know, but maybe might not. But
We try.
and I used to travel into like London and stuff, like tried to look for gigs there and things like that when I first started out. And then the reason I decided to move to Manchester was one, because all of like my favorite bands I used to listen to when I was younger are from Manchester, so I was like, oh well, I'll go there for the music scene. But then when I came here, it's ridiculous how like different it is. Like the community here is just unreal. Like the amount of friends and like people that are just so lovely to you in pubs and like venues and stuff, and like get you to play in different venues, and like the opportunities that I've got here. I just think I would never have got that if I'd tried to like do London first. So
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Like I grew up in London. I've been here since 91. So now you probably know my age, all you young people. But yeah, no, I wish that, like looking at it now, I wish I had gone to a smaller town to kind of make a name for myself there. Like what you were saying about like putting that together in Manchester and then bringing that to London and kind of having that. Because I think from 2011 to 2014, I played just under 500 gigs in London at all the different open mics. Anyone that would give me a slot, like I was there for it. And I don't think I gained more than 100 fans, because London is brutal. Like I played once at a networking event, and people had their backs to me, like, and I was playing and they were really close, but they just had their backs to me, were not listening at all. And I got that at like 70% of the gigs that I was playing at, because people just weren't, I don't know, they just weren't really there for it. Like they weren't, and it's the same story of most people that grow up in London. So I wish I had been born in a smaller town. Thanks, Mum.
Yeah. Well, and
But,
it's funny that you bring that up too, because we've had similar talks on different roundtables where we heard similar things that happened in like New York, where it was like very easy to get gigs, but so hard to break into the scene, and like similar
And you
with
never
a
get
place like
paid.
Toronto. Yeah.
Ever. You
Oh,
get
yeah.
paid to go to like Slough and do a gig, but
Yeah.
you can do 20 gigs in London and you won't get like half the amount of money.
I've heard of Slough. I've heard of cities and stuff in England. I know that. I know where Billingham is. Does that help? Does that count?
Sure.
Slough, no. Was the office not in Slough? Did you reckon with Ricky Gervais?
Sorry?
I've never watched The Office.
Oh.
Oh, I love it. So Britain is one of those people where, or one of those places
Places.
where musicians like us, like we dream of playing there to spread our music and showcase our brand. Do you guys find that a lot of non-British artists are breaking into the British scene normally, or is that something we only see in movies?
I don't know. I guess it depends where you are. Like in Manchester, there are quite a few. Like everyone's saying, it's a really tight-knit community there. But I think London, as everyone said, it's just so brutal.
And it kind of depends what niche you're in.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to push that R&B sound. Like my biggest influence is Prince. So I had like a Prince style, like I did an album with the guy that produced CeeLo Green. Like I was like, okay, this is going to be amazing. Do this Prince sound, but there just wasn't the fans. Like everybody was looking for like a more rocky sound. Like I was playing in between two rock bands and coming through with like a funk jazz sound that just wasn't getting it. But as soon as I switched to drum and bass, there is a huge like fan base for drum and bass. So as soon as that happened, it was just like the spark lit and off it went. So it kind of depends what niche you're doing, and you have to know your audience in each area and know who's listening to what. Just smacking your head against a wall trying to make funk work for 5 years didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
You gotta know your niche, know your town.
It's a good point though. It's a very good point. I want to ask about, actually, we haven't talked about any mixing things or mastering yet, so I kind of want to dive into that world of music. What are some things you look for in a really good mixing and mastering engineer, and how would you go about looking for a proper engineer? So Jack, I actually want to start with you because you make your living in this area with your studio. So can you kind of tell us what you would look for in an engineer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously experience, but that's an obvious thing. But the ability to adapt, strangely enough, because what I've been recognizing going around the countries and being in different studios, some engineers won't adapt to the artist, and for me, like my workflow with an artist is I produce it, I mix it, I master it. Like I'm sort of like the full process with the artist. And if I wasn't ready to adapt to an artist's needs or an artist's ideas, and I was stuck in my ways, and I'm like, no, this is how vocals are mixed. No, these are the reverbs that I use. And then trying to shut down like that creative communication. That's where issues come from with engineers. So being stuck in an engineer being stuck in their own ways, that's like a big red flag for me. But a flexible engineer that can execute creative ideas.
A chameleon.
That's it. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be.
Like a chameleon.
Like, I'd say look out for somebody who's actually open for ideas and is willing, even if they are a well-experienced engineer, to actually admit, oh, do you know what? That might be a better way of doing things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's actually, I really like those points you made, actually. Olivia, I want to ask you, because you just released a single. So what were some things for you maybe that you were looking for from your engineer?
Well, the one that I just released was kind of, we didn't really do, my partner actually does like producing and stuff. So he just had a little bit of a fiddle about with it, but it wasn't, we just kind of released it for a bit of fun, that particular one.
Which, by the way, was a great song. By the way, I really loved it.
But yeah, with my first single that I put out, which is the only one that I've got on Spotify, that one was a bit different. I worked with 2 different producers for that one. 2 different people mixed it and mastered it because we had like a right faff with it. But as you were saying, like, you have to be like a chameleon. I think some people just aren't prepared to alter the very set in their ways sometimes. So if that doesn't work for you,
normally
I think
the end of the road.
yeah, literally. Hence why I got 2 people to do that one.
But well, I was saying, I've said to a couple of my musician friends before that, it always helps to have a significant other who can do that kind of thing, which helps. So that's awesome that you have a partner who's able to help you with those things too.
Yeah, it's a good team, actually.
I mean, like, we're talking about mixing and mastering. I mean, for the camps that I do, like, I meet a lot of producers, and like you said, they have to be adaptable, and they've got to be able to pull it together really quickly at camps. It's like, here's like the gist of a song, the writer writes on it, and like in 6 hours it has to be done, mixed, mastered, fully finished by the end. So you want somebody who can achieve that and roll it out really quickly in like half a day, and maybe even get 2 songs done with that group of people. And as you said, it's got to be any genre. Like if it's a country group and you're a hip hop producer, you've got to make it work. Like, that's just the vibe. And the other way around, if it's a country producer that does Dolly Parton style, and then you're put in a room with somebody that wants to do like a house Sigala track, you got to pull it together, because if you just try and push hip hop, they're going to be like,
that's it.
I only do country and Sigala, like, I don't know what's going on. It's just going to be like, smash.
Well, and Minerva, because you released your single not too long ago, can you tell us a little bit more about the process of going in and recording that song?
Yeah, so the guy who I did it with, actually, he's a drummer from Birmingham. I met him about a year ago, but I heard some of his stuff. He normally works on like lo-fi, on some rap stuff. And I went in with a couple of tracks that I really like the sound of. So Mad About You by Hooverphonic. That was kind of the big thing I wanted with the track. I wanted like the swelling strings and some weird little bits in the background and the piano to be the main thing. So I showed him the track and he was like, right, I can do that. And we sat down and got the piano done and the vocals done, because that was what was already written. but on its own, it just didn't sound enough. So he had about 4 different sessions, and he just kept adding and adding and taking bits away that he didn't like and doing harmonies, and then like there's little vocal bits added in. Because there's a lyric that goes, there's about a siren's call, so we did like a weird echoey mermaid thing in the background. And by the end of it,
Nice.
yeah, we were actually going to redo the vocals, but my accent had changed for some reason. I think I'd been in Manchester for a little bit too long, and my accent had completely changed, so I couldn't do it for it to match the harmonies.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun process, and from it I've actually met and spoken to quite a few other producers from around the world, and it's really crazy to see how they all work differently, because he was very straight on it, and I'm working with this guy in America, I don't know exactly where from, and he's kind of slow with it. He will message me every couple of weeks and be like, hey, can you do this little bit? And it's a very slow process, whereas that one was fast and straight on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to work in an environment in like kind of like we mentioned before, how, you know, England, London, Manchester, like those are really big music places to be. So I think it would be really cool to work in an area like that with all those producers and just the plethora of people that you can just choose from, which, I mean, maybe we're just like from a small little town. Well, it's not a small town.
It's
Edmonton's
1
pretty
million
big.
people.
But yeah, it's always like, you know, where you're like sitting at home, you're like, oh, I want to go to Britain.
Yeah.
And I know that was terrible accent. I'm so sorry. But
Don't tell them how bad we are at it.
I'm sure you'd have a great
well, what if I do
time.
just like a super Canadian accent, eh? And it'll just balance it out.
Yeah, polar bears.
Polar bears, maple syrup, eh? But okay. Moving right along.
Come for sure, like come visit. I'm sure we can all point you in the right direction. Everyone in this chat can point you in
That
the
would
right
be
direction of
amazing.
where you
Okay,
wanna-
when we can travel again, we're
go.
going to Manchester, and then we're going to go to London right
First
after.
stop, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great. So actually, Millie and I both went to university for music here in Edmonton. I got my degree, you got your diploma. And that's actually how we met. And we've discussed this at length many, many times. But I want to know, what do you think is the value in getting a formal education in music?
Depends, I think, what area you're in really does, because I don't think I go to conservatoire and we do lots of session music, so it's not there to make you a pop star, it's there to give you a suitable career in the music industry and be able to survive. So yeah, it hasn't been really useful for me in terms of like musicality, and technically I'm a lot better. I know, yeah, that is the good part of it.
Yeah.
But I think I've wasted so much time doing session music, and I really just want to write and work with people. But I'm doing my professional engagement year this year in my 3rd year instead of the 4th, because of the way music's going. So that's good. So unis will work with you. So I think it's just what you take from it is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point.
I mean, me personally, last year I actually left college to do music full time. So I'm sort of like the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, I have, like, I don't have an issue with like going to uni for music and going to college for music and things like that. And as you said, it is very end goal based. Like, if you want to do film scoring, I'm sure like maybe a uni course in film scoring is going to help you out more. But for me, it was just straight hip hop, pop, modern productions and things like that, mixing and mastering. And I was going to college, and I was like, it's sort of choking like what I actually want to be getting done in the day. I was just getting a bigger and bigger backlog of work and mixes to do and things like that. And I just thought, you know, if I'm going to go to university to do music full time, it's not really worth the time and investment if I can just do it right now. Do you know what I mean? And just start building my career just off my own back right now. So that's why I made the decision to leave college early to do music.
Oh, it was the right decision.
Yeah, you think?
Like, for real. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you were saying, Freddie, that you've got to go for the right thing. Like, and like, I went to college, I went to the Brit School in Croydon in South London, which is all about like creating your artistry, and if you do a cover of a song, completely make it your own and do it with a completely different backing track. and make it completely your own. So I left the Brit school and then went to uni because that's what everyone else was doing. So I kind of just thought, oh crap, I'll just do what everyone else is doing, go to a uni. I went and did a pop course in Kilburn in North London. And like what you were saying, Freddie, they kind of wanted me to sing this Luther Vandross song exactly like Luther Vandross. And I'd just come out of training in the complete opposite way. So, and as you were saying as well, Jack, with the backlog of things, they want you to do this, they want you to do that, they want you to do this, and I was like being steered in the wrong direction. So I quit uni after a month. I used the loan and everything to fund an EP and left uni. And I went and auditioned and I got my job playing violin for other artists. So it was the best decision for me to go, this isn't right. Like, I'm going down the wrong road. Yeah. I know what I want. Get out the car, go and get on a train in the opposite direction. And it led me to where I am now. So
yeah.
Good choice.
And that's interesting too, because like I think we've talked about this many times, but I know that personally I've learned a lot more about the music industry being outside of that school environment. So I always envy people who've just gone into music without going into university for it, because I feel like they've almost gotten a couple steps ahead of me in terms of like understanding the industry and understanding how to be practical about it. Whereas, I don't know.
No, I agree. I think sometimes, like, there's a lot of musicians in our year that actually left just because they wanted to pursue kind of the routes you were saying, Kit. Like, they wanted to kind of skip those steps and get to the part where they really were excelling in. So I think it's just important to recognize, right, if you know that it's not for you or anything like that. So that was actually our last question of the day. We are running out of time, unfortunately. But we are so lucky to have had all of our guests on today. If you guys at home are watching this roundtable with Vienna Whyte on Twitch or Reddit, make sure to follow us so you can be notified about all of our shows that we put on. And if you want to hear this conversation through podcast, check back later today and it'll be uploaded on Vienna Whyte, the Spotify podcast. So I'm Millie Rouge, one of the hosts today, and this is Marissa Kay, your other lovely host. Marissa, where can you find our band on the internet?
You can find our band at Vienna Whyte on Instagram or on our website, www.viennawhyte.com, spelled with a Y, because we're trendy.
Perfect. Now I'm going to ask each of you just to sign yourselves out. So again, just saying your name and where our audience can find you on social media. So Olivia, can we start with you?
Yeah, I'm Olivia Browse. You can find me on Instagram at Olivia_Browse. Stream Sober. It's out on all streaming platforms. Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. And Kit, can you sign yourself out?
Hi, I'm Kit Rice. You can find me on Instagram at Kit Rice UK. And if you search for Kit Rice on Spotify, my latest single is Calm. And it's a drum and bass jazz swing tune.
Very nice.
So yeah, hopefully see some of you soon.
Awesome. And Freddie?
Hi, I'm Freddie. I'm 20. I'm from London, and you can find all of my stuff basically on Instagram at just Freddie_Elmberg.
Fantastic. And Tingy?
Hi, I'm Tingy from Blackpool, working out of Manchester. You can find me on Instagram at TNGEYY. Don't ask me why I removed the I from a name. That's a big regret of mine. But there you go. You have to live with these decisions. And yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Minerva, can you sign yourself out?
Hi, I'm Minerva Daisy. You can find me on Instagram at Minerva Daisy, all one word. And if you type me in on Spotify, you should find my debut single, Call Me the Criminal, and maybe a new single coming out in a couple of months.
Yay.
Thank you for having me on as well.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. It was lovely meeting you all. I hope.
Hey friends, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation and you want to keep listening, head over to our Twitch and our Spotify for the full recording. Make sure you smack that like button and the subscribe button on YouTube before you go. See you next show.